Hello again. I don't know what happened. It's usually something I've done, but this time I don't think it was. But there I am, just a talking head, and you can't hear me say anything. So I apologize. I have no idea. But anyway, here we are now. So let's not dwell on technical difficulties and let's just move on. Okay. So today, well, first I want to say I've been gone for a couple of weeks. We took an unplanned, unscheduled break. Erin had been suggesting we do so, and I had been resisting, and it came right down to it, and we needed to take a break. So 2 weeks ago, I was with my friend Sophie, who you've seen me interview here, and I'm going to bring her on again very soon to talk about healthy homesteading. But we were catering an event down in North Carolina. We have so much fun working together in the kitchen. I can't think of anybody that I've ever been in a kitchen with who works so well with me and I with her that there just isn't. It's just a delight to be together with her, and we complement each other. It was just wonderful being in the kitchen with Sophie. It was a makeshift kitchen. We had to make it a kitchen, actually, but it was fun. We overcame some obstacles and we had a great time just being together, she and her family and I, working and feeding a lot of people. And then this past week, my family and I, all 25 of us, were on vacation in South Carolina at the shore. We just had a blast. It was so wonderful. It's so cool that we have a family with 9 kids that all like each other and they like to be together. And another thing that we like is to cook together. We all enjoy good food. We all take turns cooking meals. And man, let me tell you, some of those meals were fantastic. The last one was fresh caught red snapper. Wow, that was fabulous. Unfortunately, Erin wasn't there. She had to miss out on the red snapper. But we enjoyed it. So that's what we've been up to the last couple of weeks, and that is why you haven't seen our fresh faces on the screen. But here we are. We've got some really cool things coming up that we're excited about. But today, I wanted to talk about a very important subject, feeding your family well on a near zero budget. Before I do so, I want to mention just a couple of things. First of all, as most of you know, I have a course, an intensive sourdough course on the School of Traditional Skills, and we have a summit coming up on the 25th of this month, so just a couple of weeks away. The summit takes place all that week, Monday through Friday. There are going to be some really interesting topics covered and presenters presenting more information. I'm going to bring up some new examples and fun things that you can do with your breads. So tune in to the School of Traditional Skills in 2 weeks, and I'll be on at Erin, I know it's on Thursday, but Erin's going to put up the time. But hopefully you'll stay and watch a lot of it. And let me just add that if you're interested in any of the courses on School of Traditional Skills, please access that through the link on our website. I believe it's on the very bottom of the front page and elsewhere. So hello, Connie. Nice to see you. It was good to have time off, but it's good to be back. So September 25th, School of Traditional Skills. Then on Saturday, the 27th, we have a really exciting thing coming up. And that is a day on the farm. My herd share, Triple E in West Virginia, is hosting a one-day event with us. We're going to have some really practical and interesting topics. So we're going to help you learn how to do a lot of important things, and the whys. Erin's going to give a talk about replacing foods from your pantry with better options. We're going to go over biblical nutrition, just a whole bunch of things. It's going to be a very fun day, not an intense day, a fun day on the farm. And so if you are anywhere around West Virginia, Western Maryland, Northern Virginia, why don't you check that out? The link is also on our website. Tickets are selling fast. They're selling really fast. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and use the link on our site or Triple E Farms, and hopefully we'll see you there. If you come, please make sure that you let us know that you're there, that you're one of our viewers, and it will be delightful to see you. Okay, that said, we have a couple of other things coming up too. I will be at the Off Grid with Doug and Stacy's Women's Retreat the first weekend of October in Missouri. So if you're interested in that, there is a link on our website for that as well. And then we have the dates for next year's event at Melvin's Farm to Fork near Roanoke, Virginia. You don't have to live in Virginia to come to this. This is a really cool event, and we're changing things up a little bit this year. So this time around, we're going to open on Friday evening. I'll give a talk, and our farmers, Gail and Thad Montgomery, will give a talk. And then we're having a delicious dinner and bluegrass music. So that's all happening the evening of April 24th. And then April 25th, we have a day jam-packed with workshops and presentations all about how to help your family to be well. The subject or the theme is From Table to Temple. So honoring God with this temple that he has given us, helping us to understand how better we can serve it to serve others. So that is going to be so much fun, and it's a little bit less intensive. It's just going to be a blast. So that is the 24th and 25th of April of 2026. Tickets will go on sale for that soon, but we'd love for you to mark it on your calendars. There are lots of great places to stay and lots of neat things to do around Roanoke. So just put that on your calendars. All right, now rolling into it. There are a couple of things that you have probably thought yourself that we hear frequently about obstacles towards feeding your family well. I want to cover both of those things today as best I can in the time allotted. One is budget, and the other is just the practical side of how do we do this? How do we do these things? Well, it's not as difficult as you might think. Let me start from the beginning of my story. When I was a young wife and mother, there was no internet, and I didn't have a lot of money to buy books, but I was doing everything I could to learn about nutrition and natural health because I intuitively knew that processed foods and modern foods were not good for our bodies. And I had watched my mother when I was young recover from multiple morbidities or comorbidities by changing her diet from a highly processed diet to a very much natural diet. And it changed how we all felt, in addition to her losing all of her diagnoses like asthma and diabetes and blood circulation issues. She had a multitude of problems. So that made an impression on my young mind. And then as a young wife and mother, I wanted to serve my family well by feeding our family well. But it was so hard to figure it all out. And there were just not a lot of tools available to us at that time. Now, funny thing though, is that back in the 1970s, when I was growing up, there was a hippie movement and the back to the land and all of that, except for it died out and went away. And there weren't very many people still doing those things. So here I am learning and desiring to know more and to do better for my own family so we can be healthy and strong. Before there was a Weston A. Price Foundation, from which I've learned more than anywhere else, and before there was the internet, and before I could afford to buy very many books, I was searching, going to the library, The long and the short of it is I understood from reading my Bible and reading anything I could get my hands on that I needed to feed my family a natural, unprocessed, whole foods diet. But here I was, a stay-at-home mom, and at this point I had 2 children. How can we do it? My husband had a good job initially, but then he started his own business. And budget. What budget? We didn't really have a budget because the income fluctuated from week to week and month to month. And so George and I would have these conversations about, but honey, I don't want to feed the kids this crap from the store, but we can't afford. Okay. So one day my husband came home with the pickup truck loaded with chickens. He had been given a whole load of chickens, I don't know, 24 at least, from an egg farm and a local egg farmer who replaced their chickens every year. So he brought home this unexpected treasure of year-old or year-and-a-half-old laying hens. And suddenly we were in the chicken business for our family. And then a friend of mine had a milking cow. I had figured out that milk should be unprocessed just like everything else. And I had been buying raw milk from a local conventional farm, not even realizing that the milk would not be all that good for us because of what the cattle were fed. But I figured that out too. And my friend said, we're kind of done with this cow. Do you want to buy it from us? So we said yes. Now, not everybody can have a cow in their backyard. I can't right now. And while most people can have chickens, maybe you can't have them if you live in a city, or where we live, we're limited as to the number of chickens. But most people can have chickens. These were the answers for us that solved that puzzle of how we were going to feed our family well. And so let me just start by saying that if there's any way possible for you to raise a few chickens, let me tell you, they recycle like crazy, all of your kitchen scraps, and they give you eggs and they can give you meat. We were blessed with a wonderful place to rent in the middle of 400 acres. That doesn't happen very often either. But I'd been praying about these things, and I think God opened doors that would otherwise not have been available to us. And God can open doors for you too. So now we're a growing family. Now we have 3 children, and we have chickens for eggs. We have a dairy cow for milk. And then I found out that we could go to the farm show in Harrisburg in January, where they hatch eggs for the children's enjoyment, and so they can see where chickens and eggs come from and what that whole process. And you could take the chicks home. So we came home with a dozen or 2 fresh young chicks, and with the Back to Basics book from Reader's Digest, we figured out how to raise chickens, milk a cow, make yogurt, do all of these things. Again, not everybody can do that, and I get that. But if you live anywhere near a rural area, I'll bet you can find some farmers or make some friends who are doing these things. The other thing that I loved and already had been doing most of my life was gardening. And to this day, I think even if I had to live in a condo, I would have pots out on the balcony. I know somebody else actually who has pots out on her balcony, and she grows a lot of things, and that would be our Erin. But if you live where you have any kind of yard, you can grow vegetables, you can grow herbs. Our yard has become I'm building it up to be a food forest, but it is a haven for birds and wildlife and fresh food, fruits and vegetables and roots and mushrooms. We don't even have an acre now. So, okay, maybe you can have a garden. Maybe you can even just grow a few things to help with the budget. But let's say that maybe you can't. And in the initial stages where we first lived in Maryland when we got married, we lived in an apartment, which actually was a chicken house at one time, apartments that had been made from old chicken houses. We could not have our own chickens and we couldn't have a garden. But then we were able to move to this place eventually where we did have, we had every opportunity available to us to grow our own food. But as I'm figuring all of this out without the acreage, without the ability to have animals, I just kept reading and searching and reading and searching. And I had been hearing to shop on the outer aisles of the grocery store. Okay, so that helped. That helped some, but it wasn't significant. However, as I follow my intuition and I'm reading, for instance, in the Old Testament about the food laws, or how to grow food and all of that is in the Old Testament. If you're following the Bible for anything, don't overlook following it for what we should eat, how it should be prepared, how it should be grown, because it's all there. And if you've been listening to me long enough, you know that this kind of bugs me. I even almost want to say annoys me, but no, it concerns me and it bugs me that people look to the Bible for all kinds of things, but not for health and healing. I did, and I do. And I learned so much just from reading the Bible and then from reading other books, which are currently packed up from my last trip. What the Bible has to say about healthy living is one of them. That was the first book I think that I bought to actually understand biblical principles for food. And then I started going to conferences and learning things like Dr. Arden Anderson. I've heard him speak a couple of times and I bought his book, Real Medicine, Real Health. The thing is, you're reading these books and you're listening to people speak at conferences. Maybe I used to sell my goat milk soaps so I could afford to go to conferences, the few that there were, and learn. But still you have this big, overwhelming obstacle of, but it costs money. But I figured out ways around the high cost of real food. But even before I go into that, I want to say that there's a very high cost to poor quality food. And that is your health, your well-being, even your family's mental health is often compromised by eating poor quality food. So let's first start out by saying that poor quality food, highly processed food, while it may be cheap because it's subsidized very heavily by our tax dollars through the Farm Bill, while the outright from your pocket cost may be little, the cost is very high. So let's just state that and understand that. But again, it was super important to me that we provide our family only good quality food that was clean. That was the impetus for us homesteading. And I've heard people say things like, well, we were doing great. We were maybe buying organic or whatever. And then we had kids and whoa, that all went out the window. No, stop. That's an excuse. We all can provide our family with high quality food, good food, and help our family to be healthy and strong. And that's what we did. That's why we're talking about this, because it's important to you, just as it was to us. So by avoiding, first of all, the center aisles, the only things that I really go down the center aisles of the grocery store, and I don't shop at a grocery store very often. It's actually pretty rare. I go to Wegmans once a month and buy fresh produce because they have great produce that if I'm not producing enough, they've got it. The only things that I go down the center aisles for, though, are for high quality olive oil, which I mostly buy from Costco. The Costco Kirkland organic brand, as of right now, is a good quality olive oil, and it is the main oil that I use for cooking. But they also have Terra Sol, which is what I'm buying more than the Kirkland brand, actually. And it's quite reasonable. And when it goes on sale, I buy 2 or 3 doubles of that, and the cost comes way down. So shopping in bulk is one thing, because I do shop at Costco for things like olive oil. I do shop at Costco for butter. I buy the New Zealand grass-fed butter. It is a much better quality than the organic brands or the Kerrygold. It's actually from clean grass-fed animals. It is about $10 for 2 pounds. So you can buy cheaper butter. And I used to buy cheaper butter, but I find that if I use the butter carefully, judiciously, and well, I can afford right now to use that butter. So for about $10 a week, actually, I don't even go through that much in a typical week unless I'm feeding a crowd, which honestly, I often am feeding a crowd. But staying away from the center aisles where all the processed food is, and then going to big box stores like Costco or Sam's Club. I used to do Sam's Club. I prefer Costco. I don't love giving my money to a big corporation. I don't. I hate it. But I don't hate it enough to compromise on the quality of food that I'm serving my family. So I utilize Costco as a tool. I buy several things from them. I buy spring mix from them. When I'm serving a crowd, I buy organic chicken, which is what I'm going to do this weekend. I buy organic chicken from them because I'm not currently producing my own. And if I'm serving 15 or 20 people, I cannot afford $30 or $35 chickens to feed that many people. I go to Costco. I also buy chicken legs there. And I buy whole chickens, not chicken parts normally. I buy chicken legs and I break it down. It's much cheaper to buy a whole chicken than it is to buy parts. And it's easy to break down. And then you have a carcass to make stock. And stock is so important. So important. But I don't recommend buying the processed stuff at Costco. Most of the food in Costco I don't touch, but I will buy European cheeses in big blocks to make my macaroni and cheese. Then I go to Trader Joe's where I buy organic brown rice and quinoa pasta for $2 or $3 a bag. It's so much cheaper than anything else, and it's good quality. And then I can make my mac and cheese or my macaroni salad or whatever. But buying in bulk helps a lot. At the grocery store, I do look for seconds in produce or things that are about to run out. So other than, well, at Costco, I also buy olives. I buy black olives, and I buy, then it just escapes me. But Costco doesn't put seconds out. They sell them to retailers who sell out of date, that kind of thing. And most areas that have a Costco also do have some kind of a store that is a secondhand retailer where you can buy quality things that you would want in your kitchen, and you can buy it for significantly cheaper even than the Costco price. When I was in Pennsylvania, we had a store called BB's. There are 3 of them still in existence, I believe, up there. And I would go there once a week, and I would buy seconds or things that were soon to be out of date, or bent and dent. BB's is a bent and dent. Most areas have some kind of a bent and dent. Sharp Shopper, Penny Saver, there are lots of stores like that. So you can go there and find some of the ingredients that you need that are not fresh, not like produce, but you can buy a lot of supplies at stores like that. And I used to buy a lot at that store up in Pennsylvania. A lot of good organic quality pastas and rice. Sometimes I could get yogurt and then I would make yogurt from the yogurt. But if you can find a store like that in your area, search it out. Two of my daughters who are living near to us here are going to I think it's a Sharp Shopper, something like that. I don't remember. It's in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And they're coming back with great deals. So the few things that I'll buy from a can, tomato sauce or diced tomatoes, organic, of course. And they recently found big gallon cans of Muir Glen fire roasted tomatoes or tomato sauce for $5 a can. I said, bring me back 10. It's going to take me years maybe to use them, but that was a steal. So just like the store up in Pennsylvania, now we've got a store down here in Virginia where I can go and I can find great things. Great things that I can put to very good use for my family and everyone who lands at my table. So the stores that are kind of the secondhand retailers, search those out. The big box stores, I do buy also like frozen wild caught fish at Costco, frozen organic vegetables to supplant what I grow at home, which I don't grow enough right now to carry us through the winter because I haven't been home enough to tend my garden as I should. Next year will be different. I buy organic cherries and organic frozen blueberries to put in our smoothies. This year I have a lot more fruit that I've planted and harvested, so I'm not going to need as much. But you're getting the idea here. The other thing I want to point out, though, is make friends with your farmers. There have been times when we really have been penniless. We maybe misbid a job or somebody's not paying, and we were surviving on the food that we were producing, our raw milk from which I could make yogurt and butter and some cheese, the eggs and the meat from the chickens and the beef from the other animals that we raised. But if we were without, or if our latest beef cow trotted down the road and ended up at the nursing home, okay, that's another story. But sometimes we were really low on our own personal inventory. But I would buy things to fill in from my local farmers. When my cow was dry, before she would freshen again, I would be going to the farms and buying my raw milk. I supported an independent membership club so that I could get things that I needed in between, or things that I wasn't producing myself. But because I established good relationships with those farmers, they are relationships that 35 years later still stand. And it's just so wonderful. I recently saw two of these farmers at an event where I spoke, and I hadn't seen them in years. It just was so, so good to see them and say hello. And we are exchanging stories, but some of those people are the very people who helped us get through hard times. They'd say, oh, we've got an overload of chicken carcasses. Do you want some? You can have them $1 a bag. We have an excess of this, that, or the other thing. Could your family use it right now? We sure could. And that was just one way of God providing for us. But that would not have happened without an established relationship with our farmers and producers. I did not establish these relationships so that I could benefit from them in this way. I established the relationships because they were good, honest, hardworking people with deep integrity who were striving to do things right, striving actually to do things biblically, and providing an excellent product for their direct personal customers. And because they saw my face so often and my children tagging along, buying things from them that we needed, we had a good relationship. I wouldn't go to a farm, pick up a couple of things, pay and leave. We usually stayed for an hour or two. But those relationships paid off in the deep and loving friendships that remain to this day, all these days later, but also just in the sharing. When I had good things that were extra, I would share with them. I've just made goat milk soap. I have plenty here. Let me share with you. Or I'm making lots of sourdough bread. I have extra. Let me share with you. I still do that today. I share those kinds of things, ferments and breads and soaps with people when I see that they need something, including my farmers. I have a new relationship in the last 10 years with the farmer that owns the farm stand on, at the base of the mountain where we now live. And he'll text me and say, you know, I need freezer space. I've got, again, chicken necks, chicken carcasses, or I've got an excess of milk or cream. It's about to be out of date. Do you want some? Come and get it. I love my farmer, John. I really sincerely love him as a person, as a friend. But I really appreciate that he appreciates our friendship, and he appreciates that I go to him to buy a lot of my things most weeks, not when I'm out of town. I'm eager to get down there today. But we appreciate one another is what I'm saying. And when you have that kind of a relationship where they value your friendship and they know that you're doing good things with the excess that they have, we're swapping all the time. And so this brings the cost down. Also, keeping things simple. You don't need a gourmet feast every dinner. But let's start with breakfast. No more breakfast cereal, please, ever. That stuff is so toxic, even if it's organic. And we're going to do a show about labels very soon. But with cereal, even if it says organic, there isn't even an organic cereal that I can recommend. The closest thing that I could recommend is Ezekiel sprouted cereal, but it has soy. And I don't recommend soy because it's too high in plant-based phytoestrogens. But other than that, I really can't recommend a breakfast cereal. A sprouted granola, maybe. A sprouted organic granola, and your grains really, truly do need to be organic. That's one area where don't buy any grain-based product that isn't organic. But instead of buying expensive breakfast cereals, how about sprouted oatmeal? How about omelets? How about fried eggs? We have eggs almost every day in this household. It's the mainstay. But I also do sprouted oatmeal or sourdough toast. Last week on vacation, we had frittatas and breakfast casseroles every day. They were wonderful. Our daughter-in-law, Sarah, who you saw me interview back in July, she made a whole bunch of breakfast casseroles with potatoes and cheese and eggs and vegetables, lots of yummy things. I love to do that kind of thing. And also sourdough or fermented waffles and pancakes and muffins instead of the cereals. Okay. And we're gonna come back to the practicality side of that in a minute. But lunches, let's talk about lunches. So breakfast can be simple and less expensive. Oh, by the way, you can oftentimes get seconds of eggs as well. But if you do buy seconds of eggs, cook them. Ask any of my children why, and they can tell you how much fun it is to have a breakfast smoothie made with eggs that were seconds, and then they get salmonella poisoning. Okay, so cook your seconds if they're eggs. But lunch can be as simple as leftovers from the day before. It can be, one of our favorites was just to make soup and have grilled cheese on sourdough. And I would and still do buy blocks of cheese and slice it. And we would have maybe 2 or 3 different cheeses on my sourdough bread. Everybody still talks about that. That's a delightful lunch. You can grow some lettuce even in a flower box and have fresh salad. Instead of buying mayonnaise, make your own mayonnaise from that olive oil that you buy at Costco. Actually, Walmart. I hate Walmart, but Walmart even carries a couple of good brands of olive oil, and it makes it more reasonable in price. But if you're making your own mayonnaise and your own salad dressings, they're less expensive and they're a whole lot healthier. So there you go. Salads, grilled cheese on sourdough, even just chicken broth. And then dinner is when maybe you make a hamburger casserole or roasted chicken. But instead of doing expensive meats, if you cannot grow them yourself, it's perfectly fine to play around with ground beef. And there are countless things you can do with that and with chicken. Countless things. I'm compiling my recipes, most of which I don't measure. So I'm trying to measure and catalog them for our book and for ebooks. But you don't have to buy expensive meat to have a good dinner. Casseroles for dinner made from scratch are not difficult generally. And with using a variety of spices, you can make them different each time. I also like to just look in the refrigerator and see what I have, what needs to be used, and throw it together for dinner. So I save the pricey things for special occasions, and otherwise, even still to this day, with only one child left at home, I'm still using less expensive cuts of meat. Once a month, we have chuck roast. That is one of my most favorite meals. I love chuck roast. But once a month, because it's expensive. Chuck roast used to be so inexpensive, but now it's expensive, but it's so good. So I save that special meal for later. Maybe I make seafood chowder once a month from wild caught fish that I buy at Costco. Those are special things. They're not everyday things. I want to say too that when you're purchasing raw milk and raw cream and that kind of thing, don't use it for cooking. You can find good quality, low temperature pasteurized dairy products and use those instead of the more expensive raw products when you're cooking it. So save money there too. And then I batch cook. So this is sort of morphing now into the hands-on practicality side of things. I want to start by saying involve your kids in the kitchen. They may make a mess, but it pays off in the long run because in a few years, they'll be pinch hitting for you when you're out too long taking care of errands or you're sick in bed or having a baby or whatever. But involve your kids in the kitchen and make it fun. Give them a butter knife and a piece of onion or lettuce or something. Even when they're 3 years old, put them on a stool and let them chop. Let them be involved. I have a picture that I could not find this morning of one of our daughters. I'll pull it up for a future episode, but one of our daughters when she was about 7 and she was chopping onions in our kitchen and she's wearing a ski mask because of the sulfur, and she's just got this big grin on her face and she's there chop and that girl can cook. And all of my kids can cook because I brought them into the kitchen. Initially it's messier, but as time goes on they save you time. And eventually I gave my kids 1 day a week that they were responsible for a dinner. That saves you time. And usually it can save you money. Instead of takeout, have your kids make dinner. But batch cooking is the other thing that makes things much more practical. I'm gonna throw up one slide just for fun here. Okay, I'll make it a little larger. I'm not suggesting that you need to make 100 loaves of bread at a time, but sometimes I do. Right now I have bread rising. I have a dough for 4 loaves rising, so I can share and will share tonight with a friend. I'll have a loaf to sell, and I'll have a loaf to stick in the freezer, and I will have a loaf for later. Whatever. We'll have a loaf to eat. We'll have a loaf for later. As you know, I talk often about the fermented foods. The fermented foods are so important. Batch cook those. No, well, don't cook. We typically make at least 2 gallons of sauerkraut at a time, but usually more like 5 to 10. And that will last us the entire season from fall until spring. The same with pickles. I do large batches. And actually, I do those sort of as a perpetual ferment as well. I always like to say that the hardest part about making sauerkraut is cleaning up the mess, and that's true. So why not just with everything that you're doing, just make large batches? Because then you only have to clean up once, and you only have to do the prep once. So it's much, much easier all the way around. And then I even batch cook meats. So this is stew meat that was marinating. I can marinate that. I can do 5 pounds at a time. And then I can dry it, pat it with paper towels, and brown it in a large skillet, and then freeze it in batches. I do the very same thing with ground meat. Right now, I have a good bit of ground. It's a mixture of ground beef, ground lamb, ground pork, and organ meat. And I just mix it up with my hands lightly and toss it into the pan. No seasoning. The seasoning comes later when you're actually making something with it. But I will batch brown ground meats, and I love to use the organ meats, even if it's just heart. But I batch brown that, and then I freeze it in quart containers. And that way I can just pull out one container. And as you know, I make gallons and gallons of stock. So I'll pull out some stock. I'll pull out my sour cream that I bought at Costco, big containers or whatever. But I've got ingredients in large amounts, and I can easily throw together a meal in 15 minutes. So this is addressing the practical side. You can do this with anything. Whenever I roast chicken, I have chicken brining right now to cook for dinner, and I have extra so that I can take all of the bones and all of the connective tissue and the legs and the wing tips and the chicken feet, and I'll make stock tomorrow morning with all of those leftover pieces. When I cook a whole chicken, I always cook at least one extra, and then I debone it, chop up the meat, and freeze it in small portions, or I chop it up and I mix it with my homemade mayo and some minced Vidalia onion or shallots. And then I have chicken salad. But if you do everything in larger quantities at once, it is so easy to store reasonable sized portions that you can toss together to make a soup, a stew, a casserole, anything you want, and you don't necessarily have to follow a recipe. Play around, have some fun. That's what I always do. So I'll grab a this, I'll grab a that, and I'll toss it together. And if it goes over really well, I'll try to repeat it and pay attention to measurements a little bit closer. Sometimes I fail. But batch purchasing, buying and trading with farmers and producers, buying seconds, and then batch cooking and batch prepping. One thing that I did not figure out to do when my kids were younger, and I really wish I had, but now I'm sharing with you, is I batch prepare mirepoix, sofrito, my anti-inflammatory concoction, which we have a video. We have a video on YouTube for healing breakfast soup or healing breakfast soup. And I think I have a video with making the actual preparation. If I don't, I will do a video for just that. And Erin, if you could put the healing breakfast soup in the notes, that would be nice too, in the comments. But what I'm telling you is, with a decent food processor, we have a food processor on our resource list, which is what I used to have, and I loved it. It was a 14 cup. I really enjoyed it, but I broke the container by setting it on the ledge and knocking it down, and we could not replace it. So now I have a Ninja. The kids bought me a Ninja for my birthday, and I really like it a lot. So I just take onions, and this is just onions and garlic, because a lot of times that's all you want is onions and garlic. So this is I take 1 large onion to 4 cloves of garlic. This is about 6 large heads of onion. So about 18 or 20 cloves of garlic. I do it in the food processor, and then I simmer it in olive oil and ghee. That's simply ghee. And then I just keep it, actually I keep it on the counter most of the time, because it's in fat, it's preserved for a period of time, or else I'll dish out enough that I will use in a few days or a week, and then the rest goes in the fridge. Most of this will go in the fridge because it's going to take me a week, 10 days, maybe 2 weeks before I use it up. I don't know. I feed a lot of people, but I do this, and then the mirepoix is 1 medium onion, or large. I'll go large and just fudge a little more. And I usually go heavy on the garlic because we all love it. So 4 cloves of garlic, and then 2 carrots, 2 celery ribs, and I chop that up in the food processor. And again, I simmer that in olive oil and ghee and put it in jars. That is technically it is a form of sofrito. Mirepoix is that minus the garlic. Sofrito is that plus the garlic, and sometimes people add peppers, maybe green or different types of peppers. That is also sofrito. I keep that on hand almost all the time. I need to buy carrots today, so this is what I did. I have celery, but not carrots. So that having sofrito, mirepoix, garlic, and onions on hand, or the anti-inflammatory concoction with ghee, which is ginger, freshly grated turmeric, freshly cracked black pepper, garlic, simmered in ghee, and then again stored in the jar. With that stock and then batch cooked meats, I can throw together just about anything I want. I'm saving a lot of time. It is super easy. I have just an abundance of flavors that I can come up with. And because I'm buying things in bulk, the cost is much lower. Whenever you can grow these things, the cost is going to be lower. I do harvest wild garlic, and I'm about to plant some garlic and some fall vegetables. So I do reduce my cost as much as I can by growing my own. And again, if you can even grow some things in a window box or in containers on the porch, you can do that too to lower the cost. But throw it all together in big batches, and it makes meal preparation so fast and so much easier. There's way less cleanup, way less time involvement, and it gives you the freedom to do other things. And hey, another thing is, when you have stuff like this prepared ahead of time, you can have your little kids, your grandchildren, or your own children come over, and it's even easier to have them help you make a meal alongside of you that they take ownership with and of, and then they want to eat it. So another time we will go into helping your family, helping your kids in particular, to learn to appreciate and desire good foods over processed junky foods. But this is one way of doing that I just wanted to mention. So let me make sure that I haven't missed anything here. You can look on our website on the blog to read Feeding Your Family Well. Anyone can do it. And then on the westonaprice.org website, I have several articles, including Drink That Milk, Eat Those Peas, and also Feeding Your Family Well on a Near Zero Budget. So you've got options there. Maybe you can pick up some more tips from things that I have written. But I would encourage you to include the children and grandchildren in your cooking. Buy in bulk, make friends with your farmer, prepare things in large batches, and keep it simple. I think that's about it. So I hope that today's little dissertation has been helpful to you. Erin did post in the comments the recipe for healing breakfast soup. We have lots of other good recipes. We have more really good things coming up. We have an interview coming up with my friend Jessica about plastics, microplastics and metals in our food, how they get there and how to avoid them. We're re-interviewing, is that a thing? We're going to have an interview again about mold and mold remediation. So that is coming up. And let me see what else we've got. Let's see. Oh my goodness, there's so much. Oh, that did not sound good, did it? Okay, anyway, I'll stop there. I have a stack of cards of things coming up, but we're just going to stop there. So I will be at Polyface this weekend. Maybe I'll see some of you there. But until then, I hope you have a great week, and we're looking forward to seeing you next week. Thanks, friends, for coming and being with us. Carmen, Connie, Tambray, and others who are often checking in. We really appreciate and value your listening in, liking, subscribing, and sharing. It all helps us tremendously, and we want to help. We want to help others. So help us to help others. Thanks again and have a great week. Bye.